Welcome to another peaceful evening with Sleepy Long Scientist, where we gently explore the wonders of our world together. Tonight, we're embarking on a quiet journey to the most magical place on Earth, the Amazon Rainforest, our planet's greatest living laboratory. As you settle into your cozy spot, imagine the soft whisper of leaves in a gentle breeze, the distant call of exotic birds, and the peaceful rhythm of life that has been quietly thriving for millions of years. This vast green world holds secrets that connect to every breath you take, every drop of rain that falls, and every moment of wonder you've ever felt in nature. Before we begin our dreamy exploration, if you find these gentle journeys help you unwind and learn, a soft subscribe would mean the world to us. Now let's drift together into the heart of the Amazon, where Earth's most incredible laboratory has been quietly working its magic, creating the very air we breathe and the climate that cradles our world. Have you ever walked into a greenhouse or a lush garden right after a warm rain and felt that incredible moment when you're suddenly surrounded by the most alive, breathing greenness imaginable? There's something almost magical about that feeling. The way the air seems thicker, richer, filled with the gentle exhales of countless plants all photosynthesizing together. Your lungs fill with this incredibly fresh oxygen, and for just a moment you feel like you're breathing life itself. It's one of those universal experiences that reminds us we're not separate from nature, but deeply, intimately connected to every leaf, every tree, every blade of grass around us. I remember the first time I truly understood this connection. I was having a particularly stressful day, feeling overwhelmed by the rush of modern life, when I stepped into a small botanical conservatory. The moment I walked through those doors, something shifted. The air felt different, not just cooler, but somehow more nourishing. I could almost feel my heartbeat slowing, my breathing deepening, as if every plant around me was gently offering me exactly what I needed. That's when it hit me. We're not just observers of nature's beauty, we're active participants in an incredible, ongoing conversation with the green world around us. Tonight, we're going to explore how the Amazon rainforest takes this gentle relationship and amplifies it to an almost unimaginable scale, creating a living laboratory that affects every single breath we take, no matter how far away we might be from its verdant heart. To truly understand the Amazon's gentle magic, we need to drift back in time, way back to when our planet was still figuring out how to create the most incredible, living laboratory ever imagined. Picture this. About 100 million years ago, long before humans walked the Earth, South America was a very different place. Where the mighty Amazon basin now spreads its green arms wide, there was actually a vast, peaceful inland sea. This ancient ocean, called the Pebas Sea, stretched quietly across what would one day become the heart of our planet's lungs. The water was warm and shallow, teeming with life forms we can barely imagine today, all slowly contributing to the rich foundation that would eventually support the world's most diverse ecosystem. But the Earth, in her infinite patience, had bigger plans brewing. Deep beneath the surface, the slow dance of continental drift was gently pushing and pulling the South American continent into new shapes. The most dramatic change began around 23 million years ago, when the Andes Mountains started their leisurely rise along the western edge of the continent. Imagine this happening so gradually that if you could watch it in real time, you'd barely notice the change from year to year, century to century. But over millions of years, these mountains grew taller and taller, creating a massive wall that would fundamentally change how water moved across the continent. Before the Andes rose, the ancient rivers that would become the Amazon system actually flowed westward, carrying their gentle cargo of sediment and nutrients toward the Pacific Ocean. But as the mountains grew higher, they began to act like an enormous natural dam, slowly redirecting all that flowing water eastward instead. This is when the Amazon River system as we know it today began to take shape, carving its peaceful path across the continent toward the Atlantic. The transition wasn't sudden or violent. It was more like watching a very slow, very gentle dance, with water finding new routes and creating new landscapes over the course of millions of patient years. Around 10 million years ago, the climate began to shift in ways that would perfectly set the stage for the Amazon's transformation into Earth's greatest living laboratory. The planet was gradually cooling from an earlier warm period, and the atmospheric conditions were becoming just right for the kind of stable, humid environment that tropical rainforests absolutely love. Rain patterns shifted, creating the reliable wet and dry seasons that would allow an incredible diversity of plants and animals to find their perfect niches. The Amazon basin became a massive greenhouse, with warm, moist air circulating in gentle patterns that would remain remarkably stable for millions of years. As the landscape settled into its new configuration, something truly magical began to happen. The rich sediments that had been accumulating in the ancient sea, combined with the new river systems bringing fresh nutrients from the rising Andes, created incredibly fertile conditions for plant life. The first tropical forests began to establish themselves along the riverbanks, slowly spreading inland as the climate stabilized. These weren't the towering, complex forests we see today. They were more like the gentle pioneers of what would become the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. Over the next several million years, the Amazon underwent what scientists call adaptive radiation, a process where life forms gradually diversify and specialize to fill every possible ecological niche. Tree species evolved to thrive at different heights, creating the layered forest structure we marvel at today. Some plants learned to live entirely in the canopy, never touching the ground. Others specialized in the deep shade of the forest floor. Animals evolved alongside these plant communities, developing incredible partnerships and dependencies that would weave the entire ecosystem into one vast interconnected web of life. The truly remarkable thing about the Amazon's formation is how it demonstrates nature's incredible patience and wisdom. Unlike human-created laboratories, which are designed and built quickly according to a plan, the Amazon laboratory evolved organically over millions of years, with each species, each relationship, each ecological process having time to develop and perfect itself. Every tree, every bird, every insect that calls the Amazon home is the result of millions of years of gentle experimentation and adaptation. The forest didn't just grow, it learned, adapted, and became increasingly sophisticated in its ability to support an almost incomprehensible diversity of life. This long, peaceful process of formation helps us understand why the Amazon is so incredibly complex, and why it functions so beautifully as a living laboratory. It wasn't created all at once, but rather grew and evolved like a gentle conversation between the earth, the climate, and countless forms of life, each contributing their own special gifts to create something far more magnificent than any of them could have achieved alone. If you've ever lived in an apartment building, you know how each floor has its own personality, its own rhythm, its own community of neighbours. The Amazon rainforest works in much the same gentle way, except instead of concrete floors, it's built from layers of living, breathing green life, each one creating its own peaceful micro-world. These layers didn't develop by accident. They're the result of millions of years of plants and animals figuring out how to share space vertically, creating what might be the most elegant apartment complex ever designed by nature. Let's start our gentle journey at the very top, in what scientists call the emergent layer. These are the gentle giants of the forest, the trees that have managed to grow so tall they actually poke their crowns above the main canopy, sometimes reaching heights of 200 feet or more. Think of them as the forest's natural skyscrapers, standing like peaceful sentinels overlooking their green kingdom. Up here, life is quite different from the rest of the forest. These emergent trees get the full force of the sun, wind, and rain, so they've developed thick, waxy leaves that can handle intense sunlight and strong winds. The animals that live up here, eagles, hawks, some monkeys, and countless insects, have adapted to this bright, sometimes harsh environment. It's like living on the roof of the world, with an endless view of green stretching to the horizon. Just below the emergent giants lies the canopy layer, and this is where the Amazon truly comes alive in the most magical way. The canopy is like a dense green ceiling that blocks about 95% of the sunlight from reaching the forest floor below. But don't think of it as just a roof. It's more like an entire city suspended in the air, complete with highways, neighbourhoods, and bustling communities. The branches interweave so closely that many canopy animals can travel for miles without ever touching the ground. This layer is home to more species than all the other layers combined. Colourful parrots, chattering monkeys, countless birds, and literally millions of insects all call the canopy home. The leaves up here are designed to capture as much of that precious sunlight as possible, while also dealing with the occasional strong wind or heavy downpour. Descending into the understory feels like entering a completely different world, one of filtered green light and gentle shadows. This layer, which exists between the canopy and the forest floor, receives only about 2 to 5% of the sunlight that hits the emergent layer. The plants here have become masters of making the most of very little light. Their leaves are often enormous and dark green, designed to capture every possible photon that filters down through the canopy above. The understory is where you'll find many of the Amazon's most beautiful flowering plants, as well as countless species of birds that prefer the quieter, more protected environment. The air here is still and humid, creating a greenhouse-like atmosphere that feels incredibly peaceful and nurturing. Finally, we reach the forest floor, which might seem like the least exciting layer, but is actually one of the most important parts of the entire forest system. Despite receiving less than 2% of the sunlight, the forest floor is incredibly busy with life, just in a quieter, more subtle way. This is where the forest does its gentle recycling work. Leaves, branches, fruits, and eventually entire trees fall to the forest floor, where an army of decomposers, fungi, bacteria, insects, and other small creatures break everything down and return nutrients to the soil. The forest floor is like an enormous natural composting system that works 24 hours a day, ensuring that nothing is wasted and everything eventually becomes food for new life. What makes these layers truly magical is how they work together as one interconnected system. Rain that hits the emergent layer slowly filters down through each level, with plants at every height taking what they need. Nutrients cycle up and down through the layers in an endless, gentle circulation. Animals move between layers depending on the time of day, the season, or their specific needs. Birds might sleep in the understory but feed in the canopy. Monkeys might live in the canopy but occasionally venture to the forest floor for water or special foods. The forest's vertical structure also creates countless microclimates, tiny pockets of specific temperature and humidity conditions that allow incredibly specialized plants and animals to thrive. A bromeliad growing in the crook of a branch 100 feet up might host its own miniature ecosystem, complete with frogs, insects, and even small plants, all living in the few cups of water that collect in its leaves. These layers demonstrate nature's incredible ability to maximize the use of space, creating not just one forest, but dozens of different environments stacked on top of each other, each one supporting its own peaceful community of life. The Amazon River system is like the world's most elaborate and peaceful circulation system, carrying life-giving water and nutrients through the heart of South America in a journey that began millions of years ago and continues with gentle persistence today. To truly appreciate this incredible network, imagine your own circulatory system scaled up to continental proportions. The Amazon River itself is like the main artery, while thousands of smaller tributaries act like veins and capillaries, reaching into every corner of the basin to nourish the vast green body of the rainforest. The Amazon River begins its quiet journey high in the Peruvian Andes, starting as nothing more than a small mountain stream trickling down from glacial peaks. But as it flows eastward across the continent, it gradually gathers strength and volume from over 1,100 tributaries, some of which are massive rivers in their own right. By the time it reaches the Atlantic Ocean, after travelling about 4,000 miles, the Amazon has become so enormous that it discharges more fresh water into the ocean than the next 7 largest rivers combined. During the rainy season, the river can be up to 30 miles wide in some places, creating what feels like a flowing inland sea rather than just a river. One of the most magical phenomena in the Amazon system happens near the city of Manaus, Brazil, where 2 major tributaries, the Rio Negro and the Amazon River, called the Rio Solimões at this point, flow side by side for several miles without mixing. The Rio Negro carries dark, tea-coloured water that's rich in organic compounds from decomposing vegetation, while the Amazon carries lighter, sediment-laden water from the Andes. These 2 rivers have different temperatures, speeds, and chemical compositions, so they maintain their distinct identities for miles, creating a visible line in the water that looks almost like someone drew a boundary with a gentle brush. Eventually the waters do mix, but this peaceful meeting of different worlds perfectly represents how the Amazon system brings together diverse elements to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The Amazon's tributaries aren't just carrying water, they're carrying the story of the entire continent. Rivers flowing down from the Andes bring fresh minerals and sediments that have been slowly weathered from ancient mountains. Rivers draining the old, stable areas of the Brazilian and Guianan shields carry different chemical signatures, adding their own unique contributions to the mix. Each tributary tells the geological story of its particular region, and when they all come together in the main Amazon channel, they create a flowing library of South American Earth history. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the Amazon River system is how it breathes with the seasons, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that has remained constant for thousands of years. During the wet season, from roughly December to May, the rivers swell with rainwater, rising 30 to 60 feet above their dry season levels. This annual flooding, called the várzea, transforms vast areas of forest into temporary wetlands where fish swim among the trees and dolphins chase their prey through flooded canopies. The trees in these floodplain forests have adapted to this seasonal rhythm, timing their fruiting to coincide with high water so fish can disperse their seeds far and wide. When the waters recede during the dry season, they leave behind incredibly fertile soils enriched with sediments and organic matter from the floods. These floodplains become temporary grasslands and beaches where different communities of plants and animals take their turn at life. River dolphins, pink and grey, follow the changing water levels, sometimes swimming far inland during floods, then retreating to deeper channels as waters fall. These gentle cetaceans have become perfectly adapted to life in a river system that's constantly changing, using echolocation to navigate through murky water and among submerged trees. The rivers also serve as highways for human communities that have lived along their banks for thousands of years. Indigenous peoples developed sophisticated knowledge of river navigation, understanding the seasonal patterns, the locations of safe harbours, and the best fishing spots. They learned to read the subtle signs that predict flooding and drought, knowledge that's been passed down through generations and remains vital for life in the Amazon today. Modern river communities still depend on this ancient wisdom, using boats as their primary transportation and timing their activities around the river's natural rhythms. The Amazon River system demonstrates nature's incredible ability to create order from complexity. What appears to be a chaotic network of waterways is actually a precisely organized system where every stream, every tributary, every seasonal flood serves a specific purpose in maintaining the health of the entire rainforest. The rivers carry nutrients from the mountains to the sea, provide highways for fish migration, create diverse habitats through their seasonal flooding, and connect distant parts of the forest into one vast interconnected ecosystem. Like the gentle circulation of blood through a living body, the Amazon's rivers keep the entire rainforest alive and thriving. Every single breath you take right now connects you intimately to the Amazon rainforest, even if you're thousands of miles away from its green heart. The forest is quietly working as Earth's most magnificent oxygen factory, where roughly 390 billion trees are gently converting carbon dioxide into the life-giving oxygen that fills your lungs at this very moment. It's one of the most beautiful examples of how we're all part of one interconnected living system, breathing together with a forest we may never see but depend on completely for our survival. The process happening in every Amazon leaf is photosynthesis, but calling it just a chemical reaction doesn't capture the quiet miracle it represents. Inside each leaf, tiny chloroplasts are capturing sunlight, and using that energy to transform carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil into glucose and oxygen. Think of each leaf as a miniature solar panel and chemical factory combined, powered entirely by sunshine and producing exactly what we need to breathe. What makes this even more magical is that this process has been running continuously, day after day for millions of years, creating and maintaining the atmosphere that allows complex life to thrive on our planet. The Amazon produces about 20% of the world's oxygen, earning it the nickname the lungs of the Earth. But unlike our lungs, which inhale and exhale in a rhythmic pattern, the Amazon's breathing is more like a gentle, constant exhalation of life. During the day, when sunlight powers photosynthesis, trees release oxygen as a byproduct of making their own food. At night, trees do breathe in oxygen and release carbon dioxide just like we do, but the net effect over 24 hours is still a generous gift of oxygen to the atmosphere. This means that roughly 1 in every 5 breaths you take contains oxygen that was recently created by an Amazon tree. The scale of this oxygen production becomes even more amazing when you consider that it's not just the trees doing this work. The Amazon canopy hosts countless epiphytes, plants that live on other plants without harming them, and each of these is also photosynthesizing and contributing oxygen to the atmosphere. Vines that climb toward the canopy, shrubs in the understory, and even tiny plants living in pools of water collected in tree branches are all part of this vast distributed oxygen factory. It's like having millions of small production facilities all working together toward the same goal. But the Amazon's relationship with our atmosphere goes far beyond just producing oxygen. The forest is also an enormous carbon storage facility, locking away carbon that would otherwise be floating in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. Each Amazon tree is essentially a carbon sculpture. Most of the wood, bark, leaves, and roots are made from carbon that the tree pulled out of the air during photosynthesis. When you touch a tree trunk, you're literally touching solidified atmosphere, carbon dioxide that was transformed into wood through the patient work of photosynthesis over many years. The forest also influences our planet's atmospheric circulation in subtle but profound ways. As trees photosynthesize, they release water vapor through their leaves in a process called transpiration. A single large Amazon tree can release hundreds of gallons of water into the atmosphere each day, and with billions of trees all transpiring together, the forest essentially creates its own weather patterns. This moisture rises into the atmosphere, forms clouds, and eventually falls as rain, often on the forest itself but sometimes thousands of miles away. In this way, the Amazon helps regulate rainfall patterns across much of South America, and even influences weather in other parts of the world. The timing of the Amazon's oxygen production follows gentle daily and seasonal rhythms that connect the forest to the larger patterns of life on Earth. During the day, when photosynthesis is most active, oxygen levels in the forest air are highest. During the rainy season, when plants are growing most rapidly, oxygen production increases. During the dry season, when many trees drop their leaves to conserve water, oxygen production slows down but never stops completely. These rhythms mean that the forest's gift of oxygen to the world fluctuates gently with natural cycles, like a planetary heartbeat. Perhaps the most profound thing about the Amazon's oxygen factory is how it demonstrates the interconnectedness of all life on Earth. The carbon dioxide you exhale right now might eventually be absorbed by an Amazon tree and transformed into oxygen that someone else will breathe years from now. The oxygen you're breathing might have been created by a tree that's been growing in the Amazon for centuries, patiently converting sunlight and air into the breath of life. This creates a beautiful, ongoing conversation between your lungs and the forest, an exchange of gases that connects you directly to one of the most remote and wild places on our planet, reminding us that no matter where we live, we're all breathing together with the Amazon. In the heart of the Amazon, there are trees standing today that were already ancient when European explorers first glimpsed the New World. These gentle giants have been quietly growing, breathing, and witnessing the forest's changes for 500, 600, sometimes even 800 years. To stand beside one of these ancient beings is to touch living history. Trees that have experienced centuries of rainy seasons and dry seasons, countless generations of animals, and the slow, peaceful evolution of the forest around them. They're like the forest's memory keepers, holding within their rings the story of the Amazon's past and serving as bridges between the world that was and the world that is becoming. The Brazil nut tree, or Bertholletia excelsa, is perhaps the most magnificent of these ancient giants. These trees can live for over 500 years and grow to heights of 160 feet, with trunks so wide that it would take a dozen people holding hands to encircle one. What makes these trees even more special is that they can't be cultivated. They only grow wild in the forest, requiring the complex web of relationships that only an intact rainforest can provide. They depend on specific orchid bees for pollination, and these bees in turn depend on certain orchids for part of their life cycle. The Brazil nuts we eat come only from these wild ancient trees, making each nut a direct gift from the deep forest that's been growing unchanged for centuries. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about these ancient giants is how they function as living apartment buildings for the forest community. A single large tree might host hundreds of different species throughout its massive structure. In the hollows of its trunk live bats, birds, and small mammals. Its bark provides attachment points for countless epiphytes, orchids, bromeliads, ferns, and mosses that create hanging gardens in the canopy. Its branches support highways for monkeys and sloths, while its leaves feed insects that in turn feed birds that nest in its crown. These trees have essentially become ecosystems unto themselves, supporting entire communities of life that depend on their patient, steady presence. The root systems of these ancient giants tell their own fascinating story about how the forest works together. Many of these massive trees have surprisingly shallow root systems, spreading out horizontally rather than diving deep into the soil. But what they lack in depth, they make up for in cooperation. The roots of different trees interweave with each other, creating a supportive network that helps the entire forest stand strong against storms and share resources during difficult times. Some ancient trees have formed partnerships with fungi that extend their root networks even further, creating underground communication systems that can span acres. Indigenous peoples of the Amazon have always recognized these ancient trees as special beings deserving of respect and reverence. Many tribes consider certain giant trees to be sacred, believing they house the spirits of ancestors or serve as connections between the earthly and spiritual worlds. Traditional stories often feature these trees as wise teachers or guardians of the forest, and shamans sometimes conduct ceremonies at the bases of particularly old and magnificent specimens. This cultural recognition of the tree's importance reflects a deep understanding of their role as pillars of the forest community. The age of these giants becomes even more impressive when you consider the challenges they've survived. They've weathered countless storms, including hurricanes and severe windstorms, that have knocked down younger trees around them. They've survived droughts that lasted for months, drawing on deep reserves of stored water and the mutual support of their forest neighbours. They've hosted millions of animals over their lifetimes, providing food, shelter and nesting sites while somehow maintaining their own health and continuing to grow year after year. Each ring in the trunk of an ancient Amazon tree is like a page in a diary, recording the conditions of a particular year. Wide rings indicate good years with plenty of rain and nutrients, while narrow rings show more challenging times. Scientists who study these growth patterns can read the climate history of the region going back centuries, learning about past droughts, floods, and climate cycles. These trees are living libraries of environmental data, holding information that helps us understand how the forest has changed over time and how it might respond to future challenges. Perhaps the most humbling thing about these ancient giants is how they continue to grow throughout their extraordinarily long lives. Unlike many animals that reach maturity and then age, these trees keep adding new wood, new leaves, new branches year after year for centuries. They seem to embody the forest's infinite patience and optimism, continuing to reach toward the light and support new life even after hundreds of years. In their presence, human timescales seem brief and hurried, reminding us of the deep time that governs natural systems and the importance of thinking beyond our own brief moment in the forest's long, peaceful story. Beneath your feet in the Amazon rainforest lies one of nature's most fascinating contradictions. Soil that appears poor and thin, yet supports the richest, most diverse ecosystem on Earth. This paradox has puzzled scientists for decades, but the answer reveals one of the most elegant and efficient recycling systems ever created by nature. The Amazon's soil is like a master magician, performing incredible feats of transformation while keeping its most important secrets hidden just beneath the surface. Most of the Amazon sits on what geologists call oxysols, ancient, heavily weathered soils that have been leached of most traditional nutrients by millions of years of tropical rain. If you were to scoop up a handful of this reddish earth and analyze it in a laboratory, you'd find it surprisingly low in the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that we typically associate with fertile soil. Yet somehow, this apparently nutrient-poor foundation supports trees that tower 200 feet into the sky, and a web of life so complex that we're still discovering new species every day. The secret lies not in what the soil stores, but in how quickly and efficiently it processes everything that falls onto it. The Amazon has perfected what scientists call a tight nutrient cycle, where virtually nothing is wasted and everything that dies becomes food for something else almost immediately. When a leaf falls from the canopy, it doesn't sit on the forest floor for long. An army of decomposers, bacteria, fungi, insects, worms, and countless other tiny creatures immediately begins breaking it down into its component nutrients. This decomposition happens so quickly in the warm, humid conditions of the rainforest that nutrients are released and absorbed by plant roots almost as fast as organic matter hits the ground. It's like having the world's most efficient composting system operating 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The real stars of this underground show are the fungi, particularly the mycorrhizal networks that form partnerships with tree roots. These fungal threads, finer than spider silk, extend the reach of every tree's root system by connecting to thousands of other plants throughout the forest. The fungi essentially act as a biological internet, allowing trees to share nutrients, water, and even chemical information with each other. When one tree has excess sugars from photosynthesis, it can trade them through the fungal network for minerals that another tree has gathered. When a tree is under attack by insects, it can send chemical warnings through this network to help neighbouring trees prepare their defences. This fungal partnership explains how Amazon trees can thrive despite the poor soil conditions. Instead of relying on stored nutrients in the soil, they've created a living network that captures and circulates nutrients in real time. The forest floor becomes less like a storage warehouse and more like a bustling marketplace where resources are constantly being exchanged, traded, and recycled. The thin layer of organic matter on the surface, fallen leaves, twigs, fruits, and other debris, serves as the raw material for this continuous cycle of breakdown and renewal. The speed of this recycling process in the Amazon is truly remarkable. A leaf that falls from the canopy can be completely decomposed and its nutrients absorbed by plant roots within just a few weeks. Compare this to a temperate forest, where the same process might take months or even years. This rapid turnover means that the vast majority of the forest's nutrients are stored not in the soil, but in the living biomass of the trees themselves. The trees are essentially holding their own nutrients, borrowing them from the soil for just long enough to build new leaves, branches, and roots, before cycling them back into the system. This efficient recycling extends to every level of the forest ecosystem. When large trees fall, creating gaps in the canopy, specialized plants quickly colonize these openings and begin capturing the nutrients released by the decomposing giant. Pioneer species grow rapidly in these gaps, eventually giving way to shade-tolerant species as the forest slowly fills in the opening. Even the smallest inputs, a falling fruit, a bit of animal waste, a dead insect, are quickly incorporated into the nutrient cycle, ensuring that nothing valuable is lost. The Amazon soil system also demonstrates the incredible importance of biodiversity in maintaining ecosystem function. The decomposition process relies on thousands of different species of bacteria, fungi, insects, and other organisms, each specialized for breaking down particular types of organic matter. This diversity ensures that the system can handle whatever the forest throws at it, from tough woody material to delicate flower petals, from animal remains to fallen fruits. If any of these decomposer species were to disappear, the entire nutrient cycling system could be disrupted. Understanding the Amazon soil reveals why forest conservation is so critical. When rainforest is cleared, this delicate nutrient cycling system is destroyed, and the thin, weathered soils are quickly depleted. Without the living network of roots and fungi to capture and circulate nutrients, the land often becomes unsuitable for agriculture within just a few years, demonstrating that the forest's richness lies not in its soil, but in the intricate web of relationships that keeps nutrients flowing through the system in an endless, gentle cycle of death and rebirth. As the sun slowly disappears behind the Amazon's endless canopy, something magical begins to happen in the forest. The transition from day to night isn't sudden or dramatic. It's more like watching the forest gently shift into a different mode of being, like a vast orchestra changing from one beautiful movement to another. The sounds that filled the daytime hours, the calls of howler monkeys, the chatter of parrots, the rustle of leaves as diurnal animals move through the canopy, gradually fade away, replaced by an entirely different symphony that transforms the forest into a place of mysterious beauty and peaceful wonder. The first voices to join the evening chorus are usually the frogs, and in the Amazon this means hundreds of different species adding their unique notes to the night's gentle music. Tree frogs hidden in bromeliads high in the canopy contribute tiny bell-like calls that sound like nature's wind chimes. Poison dart frogs on the forest floor add their soft trills and chirps. The giant leaf frog produces a sound remarkably like a baby crying, while others make noises that sound like birds, insects, or even mechanical beeping. Each species has its own perfect timing, its own preferred location, and its own special message to share with the darkness. Together they create a layered soundscape that's both soothing and alive with gentle energy. As full darkness settles over the forest, the insect orchestra begins its nightly performance. Crickets provide a steady rhythmic background hum that becomes the heartbeat of the Amazon night. Katydids add their scratchy musical calls from various heights in the forest, while countless other insects contribute clicks, buzzes, and gentle scraping sounds that blend together into nature's most perfect white noise. The sound is so constant and encompassing that it becomes like a soft blanket of audio comfort, the kind of gentle noise that actually helps quiet the mind and prepare for peaceful sleep. But the Amazon night isn't just about the small creatures. Larger animals also contribute their voices to the evening symphony. Somewhere in the distance you might hear the low, haunting call of a jaguar, a sound that carries for miles through the humid air and reminds you that you're in the presence of one of nature's most magnificent predators. Owls add their own voices to the night, from the deep hoots of the great horned owl to the eerie, almost human-sounding calls of the spectacled owl. Bats, though mostly silent to our ears, fill the night air with ultrasonic calls as they navigate and hunt, adding an invisible layer to the forest's acoustic landscape. The nocturnal primates of the Amazon also contribute to the night's gentle music. Night monkeys, the only truly nocturnal primates in the Americas, communicate with soft hoots and calls that sound remarkably peaceful and contemplative. Their voices drift through the darkness like whispered conversations, adding a sense of community and connection to the night forest. These sounds remind us that the forest never truly sleeps. It simply changes shifts, with one community of creatures settling down to rest, while another awakens to begin their daily activities under cover of darkness. What makes the Amazon's night sound so particularly soothing is how they create layers of audio texture that seem designed to calm the human nervous system. The constant background hum of insects provides a steady, predictable foundation that our brains interpret as safe and stable. The intermittent calls of frogs and other animals add interest and variety, without being jarring or alarming. The distant sounds of larger animals remind us of the forest's wildness, while staying far enough away to feel mysterious rather than threatening. It's like being surrounded by the world's most sophisticated sound machine, calibrated perfectly to induce relaxation and peaceful contemplation. The acoustic environment of the Amazon night also demonstrates the incredible efficiency of natural communication systems. Each species has evolved to use specific frequencies and timing patterns that allow their calls to be heard clearly despite the cacophony of other sounds. Frogs calling from different heights use different pitches to avoid interference. Insects time their calls to fit into acoustic gaps left by other species. Birds use the brief periods of relative quiet just after sunset and just before dawn to communicate most effectively. This natural organization creates a soundscape that feels harmonious rather than chaotic, even though hundreds of species might be vocalizing simultaneously. As the night progresses toward dawn, the forest symphony gradually shifts again. The frogs begin to quiet down, the insect chorus becomes less intense, and gradually the first tentative bird calls begin to announce the approaching day. This transition happens so gradually that you might not notice it unless you're paying careful attention, like watching the forest gently breathe its way from night back into day. The Amazon's night sounds remind us that darkness isn't something to fear, but rather a time when the natural world reveals different aspects of its beauty, creating a peaceful audio environment that connects us to the ancient rhythms of the earth and helps us remember that we too are part of nature's gentle, ongoing conversation. The birds of the Amazon are like living jewels scattered throughout the forest, each one a masterpiece of colour, song and evolutionary artistry that brings magic to every layer of the rainforest. With over 1,300 bird species calling the Amazon home, more than are found in all of North America, the forest hosts the most spectacular avian diversity on Earth. These feathered residents aren't just beautiful decorations in the forest, they're essential workers, pollinators, seed dispersers, and singers whose voices create the soundtrack that makes the Amazon feel so vibrantly alive. Perhaps no Amazon birds capture our imagination quite like the parrots, those brilliant flying rainbows that seem almost too colourful to be real. The scarlet macaw, with its stunning red, blue and yellow plumage, looks like it was painted by an artist who decided that subtlety was overrated. These magnificent birds mate for life and can live for over 50 years, meaning that a mated pair you might see today could potentially be flying through the canopy together for decades to come. Their loud, raucous calls carry for miles through the forest, serving as a constant reminder that the Amazon is home to some of the most spectacular creatures on our planet. Watching a flock of macaws fly overhead is like witnessing a living celebration, their colours flashing against the green canopy like animated rainbows. The smaller parrots add their own special charm to the forest's avian community. Amazon parrots, named for their rainforest home, are master vocalists who can learn and mimic dozens of different sounds, from other bird calls to human voices to mechanical noises they encounter in their environment. In the wild, this mimicry ability helps them communicate complex information to their flocks and adapt to changing conditions. Listening to a group of Amazon parrots chattering together in the early morning is like eavesdropping on a very animated conversation in a language we can almost but not quite understand. At the other end of the size spectrum are the hummingbirds, those tiny helicopters of the bird world that seem to defy physics with their ability to hover, fly backwards, and move through the air with precision that would make an aerospace engineer jealous. The Amazon is home to dozens of hummingbird species, each one perfectly adapted to feed from specific types of flowers. The giant hummingbird, despite its name, is only about the size of a small sparrow, while the bee hummingbird is so tiny it's often mistaken for an actual bee. These miniature marvels can beat their wings up to 80 times per second, creating the characteristic humming sound that gives them their name. Watching a hummingbird visit flowers in the forest understory is like witnessing a delicate ballet performed by a creature that seems to be made of pure energy and iridescent light. The toucans, with their enormous colourful beaks, represent another marvel of Amazon bird evolution. That massive beak, which can be nearly as long as the bird's entire body, isn't just for show. It's a perfectly designed tool for reaching fruits on branches too thin to support the bird's weight, and it's also filled with blood vessels that help the toucan regulate its body temperature in the hot rainforest climate. Despite their size, these beaks are surprisingly lightweight, made of keratin with a honeycomb-like internal structure that provides strength without adding unnecessary weight. Toucans are primarily fruit eaters, making them crucial seed dispersers who help maintain the genetic diversity of rainforest trees by carrying seeds far from their parent plants. The Amazon's bird community also includes some of the most unusual and specialized species on Earth. The hotzin, sometimes called the stink bird because of its unusual digestive system, is like a living dinosaur with claws on its wings when young. The harpy eagle, one of the most powerful raptors in the world, hunts monkeys and sloths in the canopy with silent efficiency. The cock of the rock, with its brilliant orange plumage and dramatic courtship displays, looks like it belongs in a fantasy novel rather than the real world. What makes Amazon birds particularly special is how they've evolved to fill every possible ecological niche in the forest. There are birds that specialize in eating insects, others that feed exclusively on fruit, some that hunt other birds, and even some that follow army ant colonies to catch the insects and small animals fleeing from the ants. This incredible specialization means that birds are involved in virtually every aspect of rainforest ecology, from pollinating flowers to controlling insect populations to spreading seeds that grow into the next generation of forest trees. The morning chorus in the Amazon is perhaps one of the most beautiful natural phenomena on Earth. As dawn breaks over the canopy, hundreds of bird species begin their daily songs, creating a symphony that starts quietly with a few early risers and gradually builds to a crescendo of sound that celebrates the arrival of another day in paradise. This daily concert isn't just beautiful to listen to, it's a complex communication system where birds establish territories, attract mates, and coordinate their activities for the day ahead, reminding us that even the most beautiful aspects of nature often serve essential practical purposes in the ongoing drama of forest life. The waters of the Amazon hold secrets and wonders that seem almost mythical, creating an underwater world that's every bit as diverse and magical as the forest canopy above. When you think of the Amazon, you might picture towering trees and colourful birds, but beneath the surface of those coffee-coloured rivers and crystal-clear streams lives an aquatic community so extraordinary that it challenges everything we think we know about freshwater ecosystems. The Amazon basin contains about 20% of all the fresh water on Earth, and within those waters swim creatures that range from the impossibly tiny to the surprisingly massive, each one perfectly adapted to life in this liquid jungle. Perhaps the most enchanting residents of Amazon waters are the river dolphins, those gentle pink and grey spirits that seem to embody the mystical nature of the rainforest itself. The Amazon river dolphin, or boto, is unlike its ocean cousins in almost every way. Its soft pink coloration becomes more pronounced with age and excitement. So older, more active dolphins can appear almost rose-coloured as they surface to breathe. These dolphins have evolved to navigate the murky, obstacle-filled waters of the rainforest, developing incredibly flexible necks that allow them to turn their heads in all directions and echolocation abilities so sophisticated they can distinguish between objects that differ by just millimeters. During the flood season, these dolphins swim deep into the flooded forest, chasing fish among the submerged trees in scenes that look more like fantasy than reality. The fish community of the Amazon represents one of the most diverse freshwater ecosystems on the planet, with over 3,000 known species and new ones being discovered regularly. Among the most fascinating are the electric fish, including the famous electric eel, which isn't actually an eel at all but a type of knife fish that can generate electrical discharges of up to 600 volts. These remarkable creatures use electricity not just for defense and hunting, but also for navigation and communication in the murky waters where vision is limited. The electric eel's ability to generate such powerful electrical fields makes it one of the most unique predators in any ecosystem, capable of stunning fish, defending itself from predators, and even deterring much larger animals that might threaten it. But not all Amazon fish are fearsome predators. Many have evolved the most delicate and beautiful relationships with their environment. The discus fish, with their perfectly round, colourful bodies, are like living dinner plates that glide gracefully through the quiet backwaters. Angelfish, despite their heavenly name, are surprisingly territorial, but their elegant fins and peaceful swimming style make them appear to float through the water like aquatic angels. The neon tetra, probably familiar to anyone who's ever had an aquarium, creates shimmering schools that move through the water like living silver ribbons, their bright blue and red stripes flashing in whatever sunlight filters down through the forest canopy. The seasonal flooding of the Amazon creates one of the most remarkable phenomena in the natural world: fish that literally swim through the forest. During the wet season, when water levels can rise 40 feet or more, vast areas of rainforest become temporary lakes where fish swim among the tree trunks and feed on fruits and seeds that fall from the canopy above. This flooding creates a unique partnership between the aquatic and terrestrial worlds, where fish become seed dispersers for forest trees, carrying seeds in their stomachs as they swim through the flooded forest and depositing them in new locations when the waters recede. Among the most impressive of these flood-adapted fish are the massive catfish that can grow to enormous sizes in the nutrient-rich waters of the Amazon. The Preba catfish can reach lengths of over 10 feet and weights of several hundred pounds, making them some of the largest freshwater fish in the world. Despite their imposing size, these gentle giants are filter feeders that primarily eat small fish and crustaceans, gliding through the murky water like living submarines. The arapema, another giant of Amazon waters, is an air-breathing fish that can grow to over 400 pounds and has remained virtually unchanged for millions of years, earning it the nickname living fossil. The water chemistry of different Amazon rivers creates distinct underwater environments that support different communities of fish. The blackwater rivers, stained dark by tannins from decomposing vegetation, create acidic conditions that support specialized fish communities adapted to these unique chemical conditions. The whitewater rivers, carrying sediments from the Andes, provide different nutrients and support their own distinct fish populations. Where these different water types meet, they create transition zones that support an even greater diversity of aquatic life. The Amazon's aquatic ecosystems also demonstrate the incredible interconnectedness of the rainforest environment. Fish depend on the forest for food in the form of fallen fruits, insects, and organic matter. In return, they provide nutrients to the forest through their waste, and when they die, their decomposing bodies. This circular relationship between water and land, between fish and forest, creates a seamless ecosystem where the boundaries between aquatic and terrestrial life become beautifully blurred, reminding us that in the Amazon, everything is connected to everything else in an endless, gentle cycle of mutual support and shared abundance. In the gentle world of the Amazon rainforest, predators aren't villains in some dramatic story of survival. They're more like nature's wise gardeners, carefully tending to the balance that keeps the entire ecosystem healthy and thriving. The relationship between hunters and hunted in the Amazon is one of the most beautiful examples of how nature creates harmony through what might initially seem like conflict. Every predator, from the mighty jaguar to the smallest hunting spider, plays a crucial role in maintaining the delicate equilibrium that allows thousands of species to coexist in this living laboratory. The jaguar, that magnificent spotted cat that moves through the forest like liquid shadow, perfectly embodies this gentle balance. As the Amazon's apex predator, jaguars have the power to hunt almost anything they encounter, yet they exercise this power with remarkable restraint and wisdom. These solitary cats are incredibly selective hunters, typically taking only what they need and avoiding unnecessary confrontation. A jaguar might spend days quietly following the movements of prey animals, learning their patterns and habits before making a single precise strike. This patience isn't just about hunting strategy. It's about maintaining the delicate balance that ensures prey populations remain healthy and sustainable. What makes jaguars particularly special as predators is their incredible versatility and their role in controlling multiple species throughout the forest. They're equally comfortable hunting on land, in water, and even in trees, making them the ultimate generalist predator. They might hunt capybaras along riverbanks one day and climb into the canopy to catch sloths the next. This flexibility means that jaguars help regulate populations throughout all layers of the forest, preventing any single prey species from becoming so abundant that it disrupts the ecosystem's balance. Their presence creates what ecologists call a landscape of fear, not terror, but a gentle wariness that keeps prey animals alert and prevents overgrazing or overconsumption of forest resources. The snakes of the Amazon demonstrate another beautiful aspect of predatory balance. The massive anaconda, despite being capable of taking prey as large as deer or even small caimans, spends most of its time as a patient, almost meditative presence in the forest waterways. These enormous serpents might go months between meals, lying peacefully in the water or along riverbanks, expending minimal energy while serving as a quiet regulatory force that keeps populations of water-dwelling animals in check. Their very presence influences the behavior of potential prey, encouraging animals to stay alert and avoid becoming careless around water sources. The smaller predators of the Amazon often demonstrate the most intricate and fascinating examples of natural balance. Army ants, for instance, move through the forest in massive columns that can contain millions of individuals, sweeping up insects, spiders, and small vertebrates in their path. While this might seem like indiscriminate destruction, army ants actually serve as crucial ecosystem engineers, preventing any single insect species from becoming too abundant, while also creating opportunities for other animals. Birds follow the ant columns to catch insects fleeing from the ants, while specialized beetles and other creatures have evolved to live permanently with the ant colonies, creating a mobile ecosystem that benefits numerous species. The predator-prey relationships in the Amazon also demonstrate the incredible intelligence and adaptation that emerges from millions of years of coevolution. Poison dart frogs have evolved brilliant warning colors and toxic skin compounds that make them unpalatable to most predators, while the predators that do specialize in eating them have developed specific techniques to avoid the toxins. Leafcutter ants have evolved complex agricultural systems partly as a response to predation pressure, while the predators that hunt them have developed equally sophisticated strategies for infiltrating ant colonies. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about Amazon predators is how they help create the very diversity that makes the rainforest so special. By preventing any single prey species from becoming dominant, predators ensure that resources remain available for many different types of animals and plants. This predation pressure also drives the evolution of incredible diversity in defense strategies, from the mimicry of harmless species copying dangerous ones to the development of elaborate camouflage and escape behaviors. In this way, predators aren't just maintaining balance, they're actively creating the conditions that allow biodiversity to flourish. The Amazon's predator-prey relationships also show us how natural systems can maintain stability through what appears to be constant change. Population levels of various species rise and fall in gentle cycles, with predator populations naturally adjusting to changes in prey availability. When prey is abundant, predator populations may increase slightly, which eventually brings prey numbers back down, which in turn leads to a natural decrease in predator numbers. These cycles happen over months and years, creating a dynamic balance that's always adjusting but never collapsing. Understanding the gentle balance maintained by Amazon predators helps us appreciate why every species in the forest is important, even the ones that might initially seem frightening or dangerous. The jaguar's silent hunt, the anaconda's patient wait, the army ant's relentless march. All of these are expressions of nature's wisdom, demonstrating how apparent conflict can actually create the conditions for peace, abundance, and the incredible diversity that makes the Amazon rainforest one of the most beautiful and balanced ecosystems on Earth. While we often focus on the spectacular large animals of the Amazon, the jaguars, the colourful parrots, the gentle river dolphins, the truth is that the forest is really run by creatures so small that most visitors never notice them at all. The insects and tiny invertebrates of the Amazon represent not just the majority of species in the rainforest, but the very foundation upon which everything else depends. Scientists estimate that insects alone make up more than half of all known living species on Earth, and nowhere is this more evident than in the Amazon, where a single tree might host thousands of different insect species, many of them still unknown to science. The leafcutter ants are perhaps the most impressive example of how tiny creatures can accomplish extraordinary things through cooperation and patience. These remarkable insects don't actually eat the leaves they cut. Instead, they carry their green umbrellas back to underground gardens, where they use the leaf pieces to cultivate fungus, which becomes their primary food source. A single leafcutter colony can contain several million ants working together in perfect harmony, maintaining underground fungus gardens that can span areas larger than a football field. What makes this even more amazing is that these ants essentially invented agriculture millions of years before humans did, developing sustainable farming techniques that have allowed their colonies to thrive for countless generations without depleting their environment. The diversity of Amazon butterflies reads like a catalogue of living artwork, with over 3,000 species painting the forest, with colours and patterns that seem almost too beautiful to be real. The blue morpho butterfly, with wings that shimmer like pieces of fallen sky, isn't actually blue at all. Its wings contain microscopic structures that bend light in ways that create that brilliant blue appearance, a natural technology that engineers are still trying to understand and replicate. These butterflies serve as crucial pollinators for many rainforest plants, and their caterpillars provide food for countless birds and other creatures. But perhaps most remarkably, some butterfly species have evolved to migrate thousands of miles, connecting distant parts of the rainforest, and even travelling between South and North America in journeys that rival those of much larger animals. The beetles of the Amazon represent one of nature's most successful experiments in diversity and specialization. Scientists estimate that there might be as many as 8 million beetle species worldwide, and a significant portion of them live in tropical rainforests like the Amazon. Some beetles specialize in eating wood and help decompose fallen trees, others pollinate specific flowers, and still others have evolved to live exclusively on certain types of fungi or in particular microhabitats. The rhinoceros beetle, despite being only a few inches long, is proportionally one of the strongest creatures on Earth, capable of lifting objects many times its own body weight. These gentle giants spend most of their lives quietly going about the essential work of breaking down organic matter and returning nutrients to the soil. The spiders of the Amazon have evolved some of the most ingenious hunting strategies in the natural world, demonstrating that intelligence and creativity aren't limited to large-brained animals. The bola spider creates a sticky ball attached to a silk line and swings it like a lasso to catch flying insects, while some orb weavers build webs so large and strong that they can catch small birds and bats. The jumping spiders, with their excellent vision and cat-like hunting behaviour, stalk their prey with a patience and precision that would impress any large predator. These tiny hunters help control populations of flying insects, including many species that would otherwise become agricultural pests. Perhaps no group of Amazon insects is more important to the forest's survival than the pollinators, the bees, flies, beetles, and other creatures that ensure plants can reproduce and maintain genetic diversity. Many Amazon plants have evolved incredibly specific relationships with particular pollinators, creating partnerships so intimate that neither species can survive without the other. The Brazil nut tree, for example, can only be pollinated by certain species of large bees that are strong enough to open the tree's tough flowers. Without these bees, there would be no Brazil nuts, and without the Brazil nut trees, these bees would lose a crucial food source. The decomposer insects of the Amazon work like a vast invisible recycling crew, breaking down dead plant and animal matter and returning nutrients to the soil. Termites alone process enormous quantities of dead wood, leaves, and other organic matter, while various fly larvae, beetle grubs, and other insects specialize in decomposing different types of material. This decomposition happens so quickly in the warm, humid conditions of the rainforest that a fallen leaf can be completely recycled within just a few weeks. What makes the Amazon's tiny majority truly remarkable is how these millions of small species create the conditions that allow the larger, more charismatic animals to thrive. Without the insects pollinating plants, there would be no fruits for the parrots and monkeys. Without the decomposers breaking down organic matter, there would be no nutrients for the giant trees. Without the army of small predators controlling pest populations, the forest's delicate balance would collapse. In the Amazon, as in life, it's often the smallest workers who do the most important jobs, quietly ensuring that the entire system continues to function with the gentle efficiency that has sustained this incredible ecosystem for millions of years. Deep within the Amazon rainforest grows what may be the world's most sophisticated pharmacy, where countless plants have spent millions of years perfecting chemical compounds that can heal, soothe, and restore health in ways that continue to amaze modern scientists. The indigenous peoples of the Amazon discovered this natural medicine cabinet thousands of years ago, developing a profound understanding of plant healing that represents one of humanity's greatest intellectual achievements. Today, as we face new health challenges, the forest's gentle pharmacy offers both proven remedies and the promise of future discoveries that could change medicine forever. The relationship between Amazon peoples and medicinal plants isn't simply about knowing which plant treats which ailment. It's a deep, almost mystical understanding of how the forest's healing wisdom works. Traditional healers, known as curanderos or shamans, spend decades learning not just the properties of individual plants, but how different plants work together, how the timing of harvest affects potency, and how the spiritual and emotional state of both healer and patient influences the healing process. This knowledge is passed down through generations in a continuous chain of wisdom that stretches back thousands of years, creating a living library of medical knowledge that rivals anything found in modern textbooks. One of the most famous gifts from the Amazon pharmacy is quinine, derived from the bark of the cinchona tree, which became the first effective treatment for malaria and saved countless lives worldwide. The indigenous peoples of the Andes had used this bark to treat fevers for centuries before European explorers learned about its properties and eventually isolated the active compound that would become one of medicine's most important discoveries. This pattern of indigenous knowledge leading to scientific breakthroughs has been repeated dozens of times with Amazon plants, demonstrating the incredible value of traditional healing wisdom. The cat's claw vine, known locally as Uña de Gato, represents another beautiful example of how Amazon plants offer gentle yet powerful healing. This climbing vine produces compounds that support the immune system and help reduce inflammation, and it's been used by indigenous healers for generations to treat everything from arthritis to digestive problems. What makes cat's claw particularly interesting is how it seems to work with the body's natural healing processes rather than simply suppressing symptoms, embodying the Amazon approach to medicine that seeks to restore balance rather than merely fight disease. Perhaps no Amazon plant has captured the world's attention quite like the rosy periwinkle, a small flowering plant that has revolutionized the treatment of childhood leukemia and other cancers. The compounds found in this humble forest dweller have saved thousands of lives and demonstrated how even the most unassuming plants can harbor incredibly powerful healing properties. This discovery has inspired pharmaceutical companies to intensify their search for new medicines in the rainforest, leading to a growing field called bioprospecting that seeks to identify and develop new drugs from natural sources. The Amazon's approach to healing extends far beyond individual plants to encompass entire healing systems that consider the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. The traditional use of ayahuasca, a plant mixture that induces profound psychological experiences, represents this holistic approach to healing. While controversial and requiring careful guidance, ayahuasca has shown promise in treating depression, addiction, and trauma, offering a completely different model of healing that addresses psychological and spiritual well-being alongside physical health. This demonstrates how Amazon medicine often works on multiple levels simultaneously, treating not just symptoms but underlying causes of illness. The Sangre de Drago, or dragon's blood tree, provides another fascinating example of the forest's gentle healing wisdom. When the bark of this tree is cut, it produces a red resin that hardens quickly and has been used for centuries to treat wounds, infections, and skin problems. Modern research has confirmed that this natural latex contains compounds with antimicrobial and wound-healing properties, validating the traditional use while revealing the complex chemistry that makes it effective. The tree essentially provides its own first aid kit, ready to heal wounds in both itself and any creature wise enough to use its gifts. The complexity of Amazon plant medicine is perhaps best illustrated by the preparation of traditional remedies, which often involve multiple plants combined in specific proportions and prepared according to precise rituals. A single healing preparation might contain dozens of different plant ingredients, each contributing specific properties to create a remedy that's more effective than any individual component would be alone. This sophisticated understanding of plant synergies represents a form of pharmaceutical knowledge that's both ancient and incredibly advanced. Modern science is beginning to validate what indigenous healers have known for generations, that many Amazon plants contain compounds that work gently with the body's natural healing mechanisms. Unlike synthetic drugs that often target single pathways in the body, many plant medicines contain multiple active compounds that work together to create healing effects with fewer side effects. This approach to medicine, sometimes called green pharmacy or phytotherapy, represents a return to gentler, more holistic healing practices that honor both the wisdom of traditional knowledge and the insights of modern science. The Amazon's pharmacy reminds us that healing can be found in the most unexpected places, and that the forest's greatest gifts might be not just the oxygen it provides or the climate it regulates, but the gentle medicine it offers to help humanity heal itself and find balance in an increasingly complex world. Long before Europeans ever glimpsed the Amazon rainforest, indigenous peoples had already been conducting the world's longest-running scientific study, spending thousands of years carefully observing, experimenting with, and documenting the intricate workings of their forest home. These first scientists developed a sophisticated understanding of ecology, botany, medicine, astronomy, and sustainable living that rivals anything found in modern textbooks. Their laboratories were the rivers and trees, their instruments were their senses and their patient observation, and their discoveries have sustained thriving communities for countless generations while keeping the forest healthy and intact. The depth of indigenous scientific knowledge becomes apparent when you consider how these communities learned to live sustainably in one of the world's most complex ecosystems. They developed agricultural techniques that actually improved soil fertility rather than depleting it, rotating crops and using companion planting methods that maintained biodiversity while providing abundant food. The indigenous practice of creating forest gardens, areas where useful plants are encouraged while maintaining the overall forest structure, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of ecology that modern permaculture designers are still trying to master. These living laboratories produced food, medicine, materials, and tools while actually increasing the forest's health and diversity. Indigenous languages themselves serve as vast databases of scientific knowledge, containing thousands of words for different plants, animals, ecological relationships, and natural phenomena that have no equivalent in European languages. A single indigenous community might have specific names for dozens of different soil types, each indicating particular growing conditions and uses. They have words that describe the precise timing of animal behaviors, the subtle changes in weather patterns, and the complex relationships between different species. When these languages disappear, we lose irreplaceable scientific knowledge that took centuries to accumulate through careful observation and testing. The astronomical knowledge of Amazon peoples represents another remarkable achievement of indigenous science. Despite living under a dense forest canopy that blocks much of the night sky, many indigenous groups develop sophisticated understanding of stellar movements, seasonal changes, and the relationships between celestial events and earthly phenomena. They created complex calendars that accurately predicted the timing of floods, dry seasons, and optimal planting times. Some groups could navigate vast distances through seemingly featureless forest by reading subtle signs in vegetation, water flow, and animal behavior with a precision that amazed early European explorers. Perhaps nowhere is indigenous scientific knowledge more impressive than in their understanding of plant chemistry and medicine. Through careful experimentation over generations, Amazon peoples identified hundreds of plants with specific medicinal properties, developed precise preparation methods, and created sophisticated treatment protocols that often involved multiple plants working in combination. They discovered which plants could be safely consumed raw, which required specific processing to remove toxins, and which needed to be combined with other plants to activate their healing properties. This pharmaceutical knowledge was developed without modern laboratory equipment or chemical analysis, just patient observation, careful testing, and the accumulation of knowledge across generations. The indigenous understanding of sustainable hunting and fishing practices demonstrates ecological science at its most practical and effective. Traditional hunters developed intimate knowledge of animal behavior, migration patterns, breeding cycles, and population dynamics that allowed them to harvest protein without depleting wildlife populations. They created sophisticated systems of seasonal restrictions, territorial agreements, and harvest limits that ensured abundant wildlife for future generations. Many of these traditional practices are now being studied by modern conservation biologists, who recognize their effectiveness in maintaining ecosystem health. Indigenous communities also developed remarkable technologies adapted perfectly to rainforest conditions. They created biodegradable tools and containers from forest materials, developed techniques for food preservation in humid conditions, and invented building methods that worked with rather than against the forest environment. Their boats, weapons, textiles, and other tools represent thousands of years of design evolution, resulting in technologies that are often more effective and environmentally appropriate than modern alternatives. The knowledge systems of indigenous peoples also included sophisticated methods for passing information between generations and ensuring that critical knowledge wasn't lost. Complex oral traditions, songs, stories, and ceremonies served as living libraries that preserved scientific knowledge in memorable, meaningful forms. Children learned through participation in daily activities, gradually acquiring the vast knowledge base needed to thrive in the forest environment. This educational system produced individuals with encyclopedic knowledge of their environment and the skills needed to live sustainably in one of the world's most challenging ecosystems. Modern scientists are increasingly recognizing the value of indigenous knowledge and seeking to learn from communities that have been conducting successful ecological experiments for millennia. Collaborative research projects now combine traditional knowledge with modern scientific methods, often leading to discoveries that neither approach could achieve alone. Indigenous communities are increasingly being recognized not as subjects of scientific study, but as partners in research, and as the rightful guardians of knowledge that belongs to their cultures. The scientific achievements of Amazon peoples remind us that science isn't just about laboratories and advanced equipment. It's about careful observation, systematic thinking, and the patient accumulation of knowledge over time. These first scientists created sustainable civilizations that thrived for thousands of years while maintaining the health of their environment, offering modern society invaluable lessons about how to live wisely and gently on our shared planet. The Amazon rainforest breathes with a gentle rhythm that has remained constant for millions of years, expanding and contracting with the wet and dry seasons, in a pattern so reliable that all of life in the forest has learned to dance to its peaceful cadence. Unlike the dramatic seasonal changes of temperate regions, where leaves burst into colour before falling and snow blankets the landscape, the Amazon's seasons whisper rather than shout, creating subtle shifts that reveal themselves only to those who know how to listen to the forest's quiet language. The transition from dry season to wet season happens gradually, almost imperceptibly at first. You might notice that the morning mist lingers a little longer each day, or that certain flowers begin to appear along the riverbanks. The air starts to feel heavier with moisture, carrying the promise of rain that's still weeks away. Indigenous peoples read these early signs with the expertise of meteorologists, knowing that the first scattered showers will soon give way to the steady rains that transform the entire forest ecosystem. This anticipation creates a sense of gentle excitement throughout the forest, as plants and animals prepare for the abundance that the wet season always brings. When the rains finally arrive in earnest, usually around December, the forest undergoes one of the most remarkable transformations on Earth. Rivers that were merely streams during the dry season begin to swell and spread, eventually rising 30 to 60 feet above their dry season levels. This flooding isn't violent or destructive. It's more like watching the forest take a slow, deep breath, expanding into areas that have been patiently waiting underwater for months. Trees that have spent the dry season with their roots in solid ground suddenly find themselves standing in lakes, their trunks disappearing into dark water that reflects the canopy like a mirror. The flooded forest, known locally as the Varzea, creates a magical world where the normal rules of land and water no longer apply. Fish swim among tree branches, dolphins chase their prey through submerged canopies, and the sounds of the forest become muffled and mysterious as they travel through the water-filled air. Many trees have evolved to time their fruiting with this flood season, dropping their seeds into the water where fish become unwitting gardeners, carrying seeds in their stomachs to new locations where they'll germinate when the waters recede. As the wet season progresses, the forest explodes with new growth and activity. This is when many plants produce their most spectacular flowers, taking advantage of the abundant water and nutrients. The increased humidity creates perfect conditions for amphibians, and the forest fills with the songs of countless frogs celebrating the return of their favourite season. Birds that may have travelled long distances during the dry season return to nest and raise their young, adding their voices to the forest's wet season symphony. The gradual transition back to dry season, usually beginning around May, brings its own quiet drama to the forest. As water levels slowly drop, they reveal beaches and islands that have been hidden for months underwater. These temporary landscapes become important gathering places for animals that need to access water, creating seasonal communities around the shrinking rivers and lakes. Caimans concentrate in the remaining pools, birds gather at the water's edge, and mammals establish trails leading to the reliable water sources. During the dry season, the forest takes on a different personality, quieter, more contemplative, with a golden quality to the filtered sunlight that gives everything a peaceful, timeless feeling. This is when many trees shed some of their leaves to conserve water, creating small clearings where different plants can take advantage of the increased sunlight. Some animals migrate to follow water sources, while others enter a kind of suspended animation, waiting patiently for the rains to return. The Amazon's seasonal rhythm affects not just the forest itself, but weather patterns across much of South America and even other continents. During the wet season, the forest releases enormous amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere, helping to create rain clouds that travel thousands of miles from their rainforest origins. This means that the Amazon's seasonal breathing influences rainfall in distant countries, connecting the forest to a global network of atmospheric circulation that affects weather patterns around the world. What makes the Amazon's seasons particularly beautiful is how predictable yet subtly varied they are from year to year. While the overall pattern remains constant, each year brings its own variations. Some wet seasons are more intense, some dry seasons last a little longer, creating a gentle variability that keeps the ecosystem flexible and resilient. Animals and plants have evolved to handle this variability, developing strategies that work across a range of conditions rather than depending on exactly the same conditions every year. The seasonal whispers of the Amazon remind us that nature operates on timescales much longer and more patient than human urgency. The forest's gentle rhythm teaches us about the beauty of cycles, the wisdom of adaptation, and the peaceful persistence that allows complex systems to thrive across millions of years, creating stability through constant, gentle change. There's something happening to our planet's greatest living laboratory that we need to talk about gently, honestly, and with the kind of quiet urgency that comes from love rather than fear. The Amazon rainforest, this magnificent ecosystem that has been quietly working its magic for millions of years, is facing challenges that threaten not just its own survival, but the delicate balance of our entire planet's climate and biodiversity. The crisis isn't happening with dramatic explosions or sudden catastrophes. It's unfolding slowly, quietly, like watching a beloved friend gradually become ill, which makes it both easier to ignore and more important to understand. Every day, areas of Amazon rainforest roughly the size of several football fields disappear, cleared for agriculture, cattle ranching, logging, or development. From space, these cleared areas look like brown patches spreading through the green tapestry of the forest, interrupting the continuity that has allowed this ecosystem to function as one unified system for so long. Each patch of cleared forest represents not just the loss of trees, but the disruption of countless relationships between plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms that took millions of years to develop. When a section of forest is removed, it's like removing pages from a book written in a language we're still learning to read. The impact of forest loss extends far beyond the boundaries of the cleared areas themselves. When large trees are removed, the delicate microclimate they created disappears with them. The forest edges become drier and more vulnerable to fires, which can spread into previously undisturbed areas during particularly dry seasons. Animals that depended on the cleared area for food or shelter must try to survive in smaller spaces, putting pressure on the remaining forest to support populations it wasn't designed to accommodate. The careful balance between different species begins to shift, sometimes leading to cascading effects that ripple through the entire ecosystem. Perhaps the most profound impact of Amazon deforestation is how it affects the forest's role in regulating our planet's climate. Remember how we learned that the Amazon acts like Earth's lungs, producing oxygen and absorbing carbon dioxide? When trees are cut down, not only does that carbon absorption stop, but the carbon stored in the trees and soil is often released back into the atmosphere, contributing to the greenhouse effect that's warming our planet. The Amazon contains about 10% of all the carbon stored in terrestrial ecosystems, so what happens to this forest has implications for climate stability around the world. The loss of Amazon biodiversity represents a particularly quiet tragedy, because we're losing species faster than we can even discover them. Scientists estimate that there may be millions of species in the Amazon that haven't been formally identified yet, and when their habitats disappear, these species vanish before we ever knew they existed. Each lost species represents millions of years of evolutionary experimentation, unique genetic information, and potential contributions to human knowledge and well-being that can never be recovered. The indigenous communities that have been the forest's most successful guardians for thousands of years face particular challenges as their traditional territories come under pressure from outside development. These communities possess irreplaceable knowledge about sustainable living in the rainforest, and when they're displaced, or their traditional ways of life are disrupted, we lose not just cultural diversity, but practical wisdom about how to live in harmony with complex ecosystems. Studies consistently show that indigenous territories have some of the lowest deforestation rates in the Amazon, demonstrating the effectiveness of traditional conservation practices. Climate change adds another layer of complexity to the challenges facing the Amazon. As global temperatures rise and weather patterns become more unpredictable, the forest experiences longer dry seasons, more severe droughts, and increased fire risk. Trees that evolved to thrive in stable tropical conditions find themselves stressed by unprecedented heat and drought, making them more vulnerable to disease, insect damage, and fire. Some scientists worry that parts of the Amazon could transform from rainforest to savanna if current trends continue, fundamentally altering the ecosystem's character and functions. But understanding these challenges doesn't have to lead to despair. Instead, it can inspire the kind of thoughtful action that emerges from genuine care and love for something precious. Around the world, people are working to protect the Amazon through everything from supporting sustainable products to funding conservation organizations to pressuring governments and corporations to adopt forest-friendly policies. Indigenous communities are using modern technology to monitor their territories and document illegal activities, while scientists are developing new strategies for forest restoration and protection. The quiet crisis facing the Amazon reminds us that the most important problems often unfold gradually, without fanfare or dramatic headlines. But it also reminds us that solutions often come from the same place: patient, persistent effort by people who care enough to pay attention and act thoughtfully. The Amazon has survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and countless other challenges over millions of years, demonstrating a resilience that gives reason for hope if we can find the wisdom to work with, rather than against, the forest's natural ability to heal and regenerate. The Amazon rainforest is perhaps the most powerful weather-making machine on our planet, quietly creating and influencing climate patterns that affect not just South America, but weather systems around the entire globe. This vast green expanse doesn't simply respond to weather, it actively creates it, generating its own rain, cooling the air, and sending moisture-laden winds across continents in a process so elegant and effective that it puts our most sophisticated climate control systems to shame. Understanding how the Amazon makes weather helps us appreciate why protecting this forest is crucial for maintaining climate stability far beyond its own boundaries. The forest's weather-making magic begins with a process called evapotranspiration, where trees release water vapor through their leaves in a continuous gentle exhalation that adds enormous amounts of moisture to the atmosphere. A single large rainforest tree can release hundreds of gallons of water into the air each day, and with roughly 390 billion trees in the Amazon, the forest pumps more water into the atmosphere than some of the world's largest rivers deliver to the ocean. This water doesn't just disappear, it rises into the atmosphere, cools, condenses into clouds, and eventually falls back down as rain, often on the forest itself, but sometimes thousands of miles away. This process creates what scientists call the Amazon's river in the sky. Invisible streams of moisture that flow through the atmosphere like aerial highways carrying water from the Atlantic Ocean deep into the heart of South America. As trade winds blow moisture-laden air from the ocean over the forest, the trees capture this water through their roots and eventually release it back into the atmosphere through their leaves, where it can travel even further inland. This recycling process means that water molecules might be captured and released by dozens of different trees as they make their journey from the Atlantic coast to the Andes Mountains. The Amazon's weather-making abilities become even more impressive when you consider how the forest creates its own cooling system. The process of evapotranspiration requires energy, which the trees take from the surrounding air in the form of heat. This means that the forest is constantly cooling itself and the atmosphere around it, creating temperatures that can be 10 to 15 degrees cooler than surrounding deforested areas. This cooling effect extends high into the atmosphere, influencing air pressure patterns and wind flows that affect weather systems across the continent. The forest's dark green canopy also plays a crucial role in weather creation through its interaction with solar radiation. The trees absorb enormous amounts of sunlight, using some for photosynthesis and releasing the rest as heat that warms the air above the canopy. This heating creates convection currents, rising columns of warm, moist air that form the foundation of the towering thunderclouds that bring the Amazon's dramatic afternoon rainstorms. These convection patterns are so regular and predictable that you can almost set your watch by them, with clouds beginning to build in the early afternoon and spectacular thunderstorms arriving with clock-like precision. The Amazon's influence on global weather patterns extends far beyond South America through a complex system of atmospheric connections that scientists are still working to fully understand. The moisture and heat that the forest pumps into the atmosphere influence the jet stream, affect hurricane formation in the Atlantic, and even impact monsoon patterns in other parts of the world. Changes in Amazon rainfall can influence weather patterns in North America, and the forest's health has been linked to everything from drought conditions in California to rainfall patterns in East Africa. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Amazon's weather magic is how it demonstrates the forest's ability to maintain its own ideal conditions. The trees create the humidity they need to thrive, generate the rainfall that keeps them healthy, and maintain the stable temperatures that allow the incredible diversity of rainforest life to flourish. This self-regulating system has remained remarkably stable for millions of years, creating a climate refuge that has allowed countless species to evolve and thrive even as global climate conditions have fluctuated dramatically. The forest's weather-making abilities also reveal the profound interconnectedness between forests and climate on a global scale. When areas of Amazon rainforest are cleared, they not only stop contributing moisture to the atmosphere, but they often become sources of heat and dust that can disrupt local weather patterns. Cleared areas absorb more heat from the sun, creating hot, dry conditions that can extend into surrounding forest areas and make them more vulnerable to fires and drought. Scientists studying the Amazon's climate influence have discovered that the forest operates like a massive air conditioning system for the planet, pumping water into the atmosphere, cooling the air, and helping to stabilize weather patterns across enormous regions. This cooling effect is so significant that some researchers estimate that the Amazon's destruction could contribute as much to global warming as the carbon dioxide released when the trees are burned or decompose. The Amazon's weather magic reminds us that forests aren't just collections of trees. They're active participants in creating the climate conditions that make life on Earth possible, quietly working to maintain the atmospheric stability that we often take for granted while demonstrating the elegant efficiency of natural systems that have been perfected over millions of years. High above the forest floor, suspended in the Emerald Cathedral of the Amazon canopy, modern scientists are quietly conducting some of the most important research on our planet. These contemporary explorers have developed ingenious ways to study life in the treetops without disturbing the delicate ecosystem they're trying to understand. Using everything from construction cranes to hot air balloons, to intricate rope systems that allow them to move through the canopy like the monkeys and sloths that call it home. Their work is revealing secrets about biodiversity, climate change, and ecosystem function that can only be discovered by venturing into this aerial world that remained largely unexplored until just a few decades ago. The challenges of studying the rainforest canopy are unlike anything faced by researchers in other environments. Imagine trying to conduct detailed scientific observations while suspended 150 feet in the air, surrounded by stinging insects, with humidity so thick you can barely see your notebook, and rain that can begin without warning and last for hours. Canopy researchers must be part scientist, part athlete, and part acrobat, comfortable working in three-dimensional space where a single mistake could be fatal. Yet these dedicated individuals return again and again to this challenging environment because they know that the canopy holds answers to some of the most pressing questions facing our planet. One of the most revolutionary tools for canopy research has been the construction crane, which allows scientists to access the same spots repeatedly and bring heavy equipment into the treetops. These cranes, originally designed for building skyscrapers, have been adapted for forest research and can position scientists anywhere within a large area of canopy with precision and safety. From the crane's gondola, researchers can spend entire days observing animal behavior, collecting insects, measuring tree growth, and monitoring the microclimate conditions that exist nowhere else on Earth. Some research stations have operated canopy cranes for decades, creating long-term data sets that reveal how the forest changes over time. The discoveries being made in the Amazon canopy are rewriting our understanding of tropical ecology and biodiversity. Researchers have found that the canopy hosts entirely different communities of animals and plants than the forest floor, with many species spending their entire lives in the treetops without ever touching the ground. They've discovered that epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, create suspended gardens that support complex food webs including frogs, insects, and even small mammals. Some trees in the canopy have been found to host more than 400 different species of insects, many of them new to science and found nowhere else on Earth. Canopy researchers are also making crucial discoveries about how forests respond to climate change. By monitoring temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide levels, and other atmospheric conditions at different heights in the forest, scientists are learning how the canopy acts as a buffer between the forest floor and the outside atmosphere. They're discovering that small changes in temperature or rainfall can have cascading effects throughout the vertical ecosystem, affecting everything from insect reproduction to tree growth to the timing of flowering and fruiting. The technology used in canopy research has evolved dramatically over the past few decades, allowing scientists to gather data that would have been impossible to collect just a generation ago. Tiny sensors can now monitor conditions continuously for months or years, automatically recording temperature, humidity, light levels, and even the chemical composition of the air. Remote cameras triggered by motion capture images of rare and elusive animals, providing insights into behavior and population dynamics without human presence. Drones equipped with sophisticated sensors can map the three-dimensional structure of the forest and track changes over time with incredible precision. Perhaps the most exciting aspect of current canopy research is how it's revealing the forest's role in global climate regulation. Scientists are discovering that the Amazon canopy is incredibly effective at capturing and storing carbon, with different species and different layers of the forest contributing in unique ways to carbon sequestration. They're learning how the forest's complex three-dimensional structure influences air circulation patterns and how the interaction between trees, epiphytes, and atmospheric conditions creates the stable microclimate that keeps the forest healthy. Canopy researchers are also working closely with indigenous communities, whose traditional knowledge about forest ecology provides crucial context for scientific observations. Many research projects now include indigenous guides and collaborators who bring generations of forest wisdom to complement modern scientific methods. This collaboration has led to discoveries that neither traditional knowledge nor modern science could have achieved alone, demonstrating the value of bringing different ways of understanding the natural world together. The work being done by canopy scientists is inherently collaborative and international, with researchers from around the world coming together to study different aspects of this incredibly complex ecosystem. Their findings are helping to inform conservation strategies, climate change policies, and our understanding of how biodiversity is created and maintained in tropical forests. Every day, these dedicated researchers are adding new pieces to the puzzle of how the Amazon works, gradually building a more complete picture of Earth's most complex ecosystem and the crucial role it plays in maintaining the stability of our planet's climate and biodiversity. There's something profoundly healing about being in the presence of the Amazon rainforest that goes far beyond the medicinal plants growing within its green embrace. Scientists around the world are discovering that simply being near forests, listening to their sounds, breathing their air, and witnessing their gentle complexity creates measurable improvements in human health and well-being. The Amazon, as the world's largest and most biodiverse rainforest, represents the ultimate expression of nature's ability to heal not just our bodies, but our minds and spirits as well, offering lessons about wellness that our modern world desperately needs to remember. The Japanese have a beautiful term, shinrin-yoku, which translates to forest bathing, the practice of simply being present in a forest environment and absorbing its atmosphere through all your senses. When researchers study people who spend time in forests like the Amazon, they find remarkable changes in stress hormones, blood pressure, immune function, and mental clarity. The forest seems to activate our body's natural healing systems in ways that no pharmaceutical intervention can replicate. Being surrounded by the gentle sounds of the rainforest, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant calls of birds, the peaceful murmur of flowing water appears to shift our nervous system from the stressed, hyper-alert state that characterizes modern life to a more relaxed, receptive state that promotes healing and restoration. The air in the Amazon rainforest is like breathing liquid wellness, filled with negative ions produced by the countless waterfalls, flowing streams, and the constant transpiration of billions of trees. These negative ions, which are also found near oceans and waterfalls, have been shown to improve mood, increase energy, and enhance mental clarity. The forest air also contains organic compounds called phytoncides, which trees release to protect themselves from insects and pathogens. When humans breathe these compounds, our immune systems respond by increasing the production of natural killer cells, which help fight off infections and even cancer. In essence, simply breathing forest air provides a gentle boost to our body's natural defense systems. The visual experience of being in the Amazon offers its own healing benefits, providing what researchers call soft fascination, the kind of gentle, effortless attention that allows our overworked minds to rest and restore themselves. Unlike the hard fascination required by screens, traffic, and urban environments, the forest offers endless variety without overwhelming stimulation. Your eyes can follow the graceful movement of leaves in a gentle breeze, trace the complex patterns of bark on ancient trees, or watch sunlight filter through the canopy in ever-changing patterns of light and shadow. This visual richness engages our attention in a way that feels nourishing rather than depleting. Indigenous wisdom about the healing power of the forest extends far beyond individual medicinal plants to encompass entire healing ecosystems. Traditional healers understand that healing happens not just through consuming specific plants, but through developing a relationship with the forest itself. Many healing ceremonies take place in natural settings where the sounds, smells, and energy of the living forest become part of the therapeutic process. This holistic approach recognizes that humans are not separate from nature, but are part of the same interconnected web of life, and that our well-being is intimately connected to the health of the natural world around us. The Amazon's healing influence extends to our psychological and spiritual well-being in ways that modern psychology is beginning to understand and validate. Being in the presence of ancient trees and vast, complex ecosystems seems to provide perspective on our personal problems and anxieties, reminding us that we're part of something much larger and more enduring than our immediate concerns. The forest's demonstration of interconnectedness, cooperation, and resilience offers powerful models for how to navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom. Many people report profound feelings of peace, connection, and insight after spending time in natural environments like the Amazon. The healing power of the forest is also deeply connected to our evolutionary history as humans. Our species evolved in close contact with natural environments, and our bodies and minds are still adapted to thrive in the presence of forests, grasslands, and other natural ecosystems. When we spend time in environments like the Amazon, we're essentially returning to the conditions that shaped our biology and psychology over millions of years. This may explain why forest environments feel so immediately familiar and comforting, even to people who have spent their entire lives in cities. Recent research has shown that even indirect exposure to forest environments can provide healing benefits. Listening to recordings of forest sounds, looking at images of natural landscapes, or even having plants and natural materials in indoor spaces can reduce stress and improve well-being. This suggests that the Amazon's healing influence extends far beyond its physical boundaries, offering wellness benefits to people around the world who may never have the opportunity to visit the forest in person. The healing forest reminds us that wellness isn't just about treating disease or managing symptoms. It's about creating conditions that allow our natural healing abilities to flourish. The Amazon demonstrates that the most powerful medicine might not come in bottles or pills, but in reconnecting with the living systems that have sustained and nurtured life on Earth for millions of years. In the Amazon rainforest, nothing exists in isolation. Every tree, every bird, every tiny insect, every microorganism is connected to every other living thing through an intricate web of relationships so complex and beautiful that scientists are still discovering new connections after decades of study. This isn't just poetic metaphor, it's literal biological reality, where the survival and well-being of each species depends on countless other species in ways that demonstrate nature's most fundamental truth. We're all part of one living system, breathing and growing and thriving together. Perhaps the most remarkable example of this interconnectedness lies beneath our feet, in the vast network of fungal threads called mycorrhizae that connect the roots of different trees throughout the forest. These microscopic fungi form partnerships with tree roots, extending the reach of each tree's root system by hundreds of times and creating what scientists call the wood wide web, a biological internet that allows trees to share nutrients, water, and even chemical information across vast distances. Through this network, a tree that's thriving in a sunny spot can share excess sugars with a tree struggling in the shade, while the shaded tree might return the favour by sharing minerals it has gathered from deeper soil layers. This underground communication system becomes even more fascinating when you consider that trees can actually send chemical warnings to each other through the fungal network. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can release chemical signals that travel through the mycorrhizal connections to warn neighbouring trees, allowing them to begin producing defensive compounds before the insects arrive. Mother trees, the largest, oldest trees in the forest, seem to play a particularly important role in this network, nurturing their offspring and even neighbouring trees of different species through these fungal connections. It's like discovering that the forest has its own nervous system, with trees as neurons sharing information and resources in ways that benefit the entire community. The relationships between plants and animals in the Amazon demonstrate equally intricate partnerships that have evolved over millions of years. Many plants depend entirely on specific animal partners for reproduction. The Brazil nut tree can only be pollinated by certain large bees that are strong enough to open its tough flowers, while these bees depend on specific orchids for part of their life cycle. If any link in this chain disappears, the entire system breaks down. This creates what ecologists call keystone species, organisms whose presence or absence has effects that ripple throughout the entire ecosystem in ways that seem disproportionate to their size or numbers. The army ants of the Amazon illustrate another beautiful example of how species create opportunities for each other. As these ants march through the forest in massive columns, they flush out insects and small animals that flee from their path. But rather than seeing this as pure destruction, dozens of bird species have learned to follow the ant armies, catching the creatures that escape from the ants. Some birds have become so specialized for this lifestyle that they can't survive without the ants, while the ants benefit from having the birds around because they often alert the colony to threats and opportunities. It's a partnership that benefits both species while creating additional opportunities for countless other creatures. The vertical structure of the rainforest creates its own complex web of relationships between species living at different heights. Monkeys in the canopy drop partially eaten fruits that become food for animals on the forest floor, while their movements through the trees create pathways that other species use for travel. Birds nesting in the canopy depend on insects living in the understory, while those insects often depend on leaf litter created by plants in the canopy. Each layer of the forest supports the others in an endless cycle of giving and receiving that maintains the health of the entire system. Even death in the Amazon becomes part of this beautiful web of life. When a giant tree falls, it creates a gap in the canopy that allows sunlight to reach the forest floor, triggering a burst of new growth from seeds that may have been waiting years for their chance at light. The fallen tree itself becomes a nursery log, providing nutrients and growing space for countless other plants, while the hollow logs and root systems become homes for animals. Nothing is wasted, and every ending becomes a beginning for something else. The seasonal flooding of the Amazon creates temporary connections between normally separate ecosystems, allowing fish to swim through forests and disperse seeds to new locations. River dolphins follow the floods inland, while terrestrial animals adapt their movements to the changing water levels. These seasonal connections demonstrate how even time becomes part of the web, with different relationships activating and deactivating in rhythm with natural cycles. Understanding the Amazon's web of life helps us appreciate why biodiversity is so crucial for ecosystem health. Each species, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, plays multiple roles in maintaining the complex relationships that keep the forest functioning. When species disappear, they leave gaps in the web that can weaken the entire system, sometimes in unexpected ways. The Amazon's incredible stability over millions of years comes from this redundancy and interconnectedness, where multiple species can perform similar functions and support each other through changing conditions. This web of life extends beyond the forest itself to include human communities, global climate patterns, and even our own well-being, reminding us that we too are threads in this magnificent tapestry of existence. In a world that sometimes feels overwhelmed by environmental challenges, the Amazon rainforest offers us something precious and powerful: seeds of hope. These aren't just the literal seeds that drift on the wind or travel in the bellies of birds, but the growing movements of people around the world who are working to protect and restore this incredible ecosystem. From indigenous communities reclaiming their traditional territories to young people starting conservation organizations in their backyards, from scientists developing new protection strategies to individuals making daily choices that support forest health, hope is taking root and growing in beautiful, unexpected ways. Perhaps the most inspiring seeds of hope come from the indigenous communities themselves, who are increasingly being recognized as the most effective guardians of rainforest ecosystems. After centuries of having their knowledge dismissed or ignored, indigenous peoples are now leading conservation efforts and using modern technology to monitor and protect their territories. Satellite phones and GPS devices help communities document illegal logging or mining activities, while partnerships with conservation organizations provide resources for education and sustainable development projects. These communities are proving that traditional wisdom and modern tools can work together to create powerful protection for the forest, while also maintaining the cultural traditions that have sustained them for thousands of years. Around the world, young people are growing up with a deep understanding of the Amazon's importance and a fierce determination to protect it. School children are raising money to adopt acres of rainforest, while teenagers are starting environmental clubs and lobbying their governments to support forest protection policies. Social media has allowed young activists to connect across continents, sharing information and coordinating actions that bring global attention to rainforest conservation. These young voices remind us that caring for the environment isn't just about preserving something from the past, but about creating a livable future for generations to come. The growing field of restoration ecology offers another beautiful source of hope, as scientists and communities work together to heal damaged areas of the rainforest. Researchers have learned that rainforest ecosystems have remarkable powers of recovery when given the right support and protection. Reforestation projects are becoming increasingly sophisticated, using native species, mycorrhizal fungi, and understanding of forest succession to create new forests that can eventually support the same diversity of life as the original ecosystem. Some areas that were completely cleared just decades ago are now thriving forests again, demonstrating nature's incredible resilience when humans work as partners rather than adversaries. Consumer awareness and corporate responsibility are creating market-based solutions that support forest conservation while providing economic benefits to local communities. The certification of sustainable forest products means that people around the world can make purchasing decisions that directly support forest protection. Fair trade initiatives ensure that communities living in and around the rainforest receive fair compensation for protecting their environment rather than clearing it. Ecotourism provides alternative income sources that make forests more valuable standing than cut down, while also educating visitors about the importance of conservation. Technology is providing new tools for forest protection that seemed like science fiction just a few years ago. Satellite monitoring systems can detect deforestation in real time, allowing rapid response to illegal activities, Acoustic sensors placed throughout the forest can identify the sounds of chainsaws or other equipment, alerting authorities to potential threats. Drones equipped with cameras and sensors can survey vast areas of forest quickly and safely, providing detailed information about ecosystem health and changes over time. These technological solutions are making it easier and more cost-effective to monitor and protect large areas of rainforest. International cooperation and policy changes are creating new frameworks for forest protection that recognize the global importance of ecosystems like the Amazon. Carbon credit programs provide economic incentives for keeping forests standing rather than clearing them, while international agreements create mechanisms for wealthy countries to support forest conservation in developing nations. These policy innovations acknowledge that protecting the rainforest benefits everyone on Earth and should be supported by the global community. Perhaps the most powerful seeds of hope lie in the simple fact that millions of people around the world now understand and care about the Amazon rainforest. Environmental education has created a generation of people who see themselves as connected to ecosystems thousands of miles away, who understand that their daily choices can impact forest health, and who are willing to take action to support conservation. This growing awareness creates political pressure for better policies, market demand for sustainable products, and social support for conservation organizations and indigenous rights. The forest itself provides hope through its incredible resilience and adaptability. Despite all the challenges it faces, the Amazon continues to support an amazing diversity of life, continues to produce oxygen and regulate climate, and continues to reveal new secrets and wonders to those who study it. Every new species discovered, every successful conservation project, every restored forest area demonstrates that it's not too late to protect and restore this incredible ecosystem. These seeds of hope remind us that environmental protection isn't just about preventing disaster. It's about creating a world where humans and nature can thrive together. The Amazon shows us what's possible when we approach the natural world with respect, curiosity, and love, offering a vision of hope that can inspire action and sustain us through the challenges ahead. After spending time exploring the Amazon's incredible complexity and beauty, it becomes clear that this living laboratory has been conducting the longest-running experiment in sustainable living on our planet. For millions of years, the rainforest has been quietly demonstrating principles of cooperation, efficiency, resilience, and balance that offer profound lessons for how we might live more wisely on Earth. These aren't abstract philosophical concepts. They're practical strategies that have been tested and refined over geological time, proving their effectiveness through the simple fact that the Amazon has thrived while countless other ecosystems have come and gone. Education and awareness form another crucial connection between us and the Amazon. When we learn about the forest and share that knowledge with others, we become part of a growing global community that understands and values this incredible ecosystem. Every conversation about the Amazon's importance, every story shared about its wonders, every moment of appreciation for its beauty creates broader awareness that translates into political support for conservation policies and protection measures. Our gentle connection to the Amazon ultimately reminds us that caring for distant ecosystems isn't separate from caring for ourselves and our local communities. It's all part of the same web of relationships that sustains life on Earth. The love and respect we feel for the rainforest can inspire us to live more thoughtfully wherever we are, to appreciate the natural world around us more deeply, and to make choices that support rather than diminish the incredible diversity and beauty of life on our shared planet. As our gentle journey through the Amazon rainforest draws to a peaceful close, we find ourselves changed by what we've discovered together in this magnificent living laboratory. We've wandered through layers of green that stretch from the forest floor to the sky, listened to the quiet conversations between trees through their underground fungal networks, and witnessed the patient dance of millions of species working together to create something far more beautiful and complex than any of them could achieve alone. The Amazon has shared its secrets with us, not the dramatic revelations of adventure movies, but the gentle truths that emerge only when we slow down enough to really listen to what the forest has been whispering all along. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you can carry with you the peaceful rhythm of the Amazon's breathing, that slow, steady exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide that connects your lungs to leaves you may never see but depend upon completely. The forest's quiet presence continues even now, as night settles over the canopy and the gentle symphony of frogs and insects begins its evening performance. Somewhere in the darkness, a jaguar moves like liquid shadow along a familiar trail, while high above, night-blooming flowers open their petals to moths that have been waiting all day for this moment. The forest's work never stops, but it proceeds with the kind of unhurried patience that reminds us that the most important things in life happen slowly, steadily, with persistent love rather than dramatic force. The Amazon has taught us that we are all part of something much larger and more enduring than our daily concerns. Every breath we take connects us to this distant forest. Every choice we make sends gentle ripples through the web of relationships that sustains life on Earth. This connection isn't a burden of responsibility, but a gift of belonging, the beautiful recognition that we're not isolated individuals struggling alone, but participants in an ancient conversation between all living things that has been continuing for millions of years and will continue long after we're gone. As you settle into the comfort of sleep, remember the forest's greatest lesson, that cooperation creates more abundance than competition, that patience achieves more than hurry, and that the gentle approach often succeeds where force fails. The Amazon's trees don't fight each other for sunlight. They grow tall together, creating the canopy that protects them all. The forest's creatures don't waste energy on unnecessary conflict. They find ways to share space and resources that benefit the entire community. These aren't just ecological strategies, but wisdom that can guide us in our human relationships and daily choices. The living laboratory of the Amazon continues its quiet experiments in sustainable living, resilient community building, and the patient art of turning challenges into opportunities for growth. Tonight, as the forest breathes in the darkness, new seedlings are pushing through the soil toward distant light. Partnerships are forming between species that have never met before, and the ancient cycles that have sustained this ecosystem for millions of years continue their gentle revolution. The forest demonstrates that healing and growth never stop, that every ending becomes a beginning, and that there's always reason for hope when we remember that we're part of something larger and more resilient than we can fully comprehend. Your dreams tonight might be filled with the green light filtering through leaves, the peaceful sounds of water flowing over stones, or the quiet presence of ancient trees that have witnessed countless seasons of change while remaining rooted in patience and grace. These aren't just beautiful images, but reminders of the peaceful strength that's available to us when we learn to live in harmony with natural rhythms rather than fighting against them. The Amazon's gift to us isn't just oxygen and climate regulation, but the memory of what it feels like to be part of a world where everything is connected, where every being has its place, and where cooperation creates the abundance that sustains all life. As sleep gently takes you, know that you're now part of the Amazon's story, carrying its wisdom in your heart and its quiet strength in your dreams. The forest's patience becomes your patience, its resilience becomes your resilience, and its deep trust in the fundamental goodness of life becomes part of your own understanding of what it means to be alive on this beautiful breathing planet. The Amazon's greatest laboratory experiment is still in progress, and you, through your choices, your awareness, and your love for the natural world, are part of that ongoing exploration of how life can thrive in endless, gentle abundance. Sweet dreams from Earth's greatest living laboratory, where every night the forest whispers its ancient secrets to those who know how to listen, and every morning it awakens to continue the patient work of sustaining life, creating beauty, and demonstrating that love, quiet, persistent, generous love, is the force that keeps our world alive and thriving. Sleep well, knowing you're breathing with the Amazon, dreaming with the forest, and participating in the most beautiful experiment ever conducted on our precious living Earth. Perhaps the most fundamental lesson the Amazon teaches is the power of patience and long-term thinking. In our fast-paced world, where we expect immediate results and quick fixes, the forest demonstrates the beauty and effectiveness of slow, steady growth. The giant trees that tower above the canopy didn't reach their magnificent heights overnight. They grew gradually, ring by ring, year by year, some for centuries. They weathered storms, droughts, and countless challenges not through dramatic responses, but through patient persistence and deep roots that kept them anchored while they continued reaching toward the light. This teaches us that the most important achievements in life often require the same kind of gentle persistence, the willingness to keep growing even when progress seems slow. the Amazon's approach to diversity offers another crucial lesson for human communities. The forest's incredible stability comes not from having one dominant species that controls everything, but from supporting an almost unimaginable variety of life forms, each contributing something unique to the whole. This biodiversity creates resilience. When one species faces challenges, others can fill similar roles and maintain ecosystem function. In human terms, this suggests that our communities, organizations, and societies become stronger and more resilient when they embrace and support diversity of all kinds. Different perspectives, skills, backgrounds, and ways of thinking all contribute to the health and adaptability of the whole system. The forest's circular economy provides a masterclass in waste elimination and resource efficiency. In the Amazon, nothing is truly waste. What one organism discards becomes food or building material for another. Fallen leaves become soil nutrients, dead trees become nurseries for new growth, and even animal waste becomes fertilizer that supports new life. This closed-loop system has operated successfully for millions of years without depleting its resources or creating pollution that can't be absorbed and recycled. As human societies grapple with issues of waste and resource depletion, the Amazon shows us what's possible when we design systems that work in harmony with natural cycles rather than against them. The rainforest also demonstrates the profound importance of cooperation and mutual support. The mycorrhizal networks that connect tree roots, the partnerships between plants and their pollinators, the way different species share resources during difficult times. All of these relationships show that competition, while present in nature, is balanced by equally important patterns of cooperation and mutual aid. The forest's most successful organisms aren't necessarily the strongest or most aggressive, but often those that form the most beneficial partnerships with other species. This suggests that human success, too, might come more from our ability to collaborate and support each other than from our capacity to compete and dominate. The Amazon's response to disturbance offers valuable lessons about resilience and recovery. When storms knock down trees or fires clear areas of forest, the ecosystem doesn't resist these changes but adapts to them, using them as opportunities for renewal and growth. Pioneer species quickly colonize disturbed areas, eventually giving way to more mature forest communities in a process called succession. This teaches us that resilience doesn't mean avoiding all change or challenge, but rather developing the flexibility to adapt and even benefit from disruption when it comes. The forest's integration of structure and flow demonstrates how stable systems can maintain their essential character while constantly changing in their details. The Amazon's basic structure, its layers, its major species, its fundamental processes, has remained remarkably consistent over millions of years, yet every day brings countless small changes as individual organisms are born, grow, reproduce, and die. This balance between stability and change suggests that successful human systems, too, need strong foundational principles that can support ongoing adaptation and growth. Perhaps most importantly, the Amazon teaches us about the interconnectedness of all life and the importance of thinking systemically rather than focusing only on individual parts. Every element of the forest affects every other element in ways that are often subtle but always significant. This web of relationships creates emergent properties, characteristics of the whole system that arise from the interactions between parts but can't be predicted by studying those parts in isolation. For humans, this suggests the importance of considering how our actions affect the larger systems we're part of, and how individual well-being is intimately connected to the health of our communities and environment. The Amazon's lessons remind us that sustainable living isn't about returning to some imagined past, but about learn,